Howdy, guys, and welcome to Cliff Notes, and welcome to a recap of episode 10 of Survivor Season 42. Man, another episode with all kinds of excitement going on, a little twist coming into play, a lot of strategic play going on tonight, so let's get right into it. Now, before we do, let's quickly talk about last week. We lost High, good, strong player. Of course, I think everyone that's left are pretty good, strong players, so we lost High last week. We're down to the final 7, which... they're right here where my head covers up with the background of it. We're down to the final 7, and we're into night number 19. We only have 10 days left in the Survivor world, and quickly we're going to get rid of another 4. And it's going to be, finale's going to be here before you know it. The players, I think, are recognizing that as well. There's nowhere to hide anymore. You've got a lot more talk this episode about who are the big targets, competition-wise, because they have advantages, because they're going to be strong threats to win in front of a jury. There's lots of things that make a person strong, and we're seeing a lot of people getting called out for that, or at least whispered about because of this episode. So again, we lost High last week. We start off the episode with Mike feeling pretty proud that he feels like, I think he used the word orchestrated, that he was behind the movement to get High out. And yes, he should be proud. I mean, he manipulated. He did what it took to get High out. But I think I like Mike as a player. I truly do. I sometimes feel like he just plays things a little too personal at times. He felt a little bit of a grudge against High because he felt like High had kind of taken advantage of him the week before. So he wanted to get High back. High is a strong player. There's nothing wrong with getting rid of him. But now you move on, Mike. But Mike is feeling very, very comfortable about his position in the game now that he's been able to make some moves and everything seems to be working okay. He feels comfortable. Romeo, on the other hand, Romeo's feeling like he's just not part of the group. He certainly doesn't feel like he's the alpha anything in this game right now, but he's not necessarily feeling bad about that. He's talking about the fact that he wants to lay low. He's just going to let these alphas go against each other. He's going to let Jonathan and Mike and all these guys go back and forth, and he's just going to lay low and ride it to the end. Not a bad strategy. Now, it makes it a little tough at the very end to convince a jury that you're the person who needs to win the entire game. But I get the idea of staying low, staying under the radar as much as you can, let the big targets take out each other. So Romeo knows what his strategy is going forward. The key is, can he make it work? Oh, well, we're going to find out. We do see Lindsay and Drea now talking about the fact that, High's gone, and High was one of the 3 people along with Lindsay and Drea who had that amulet they found on day number 1. And now with High gone, the amulet's power has increased. Since there's only 2 of them left holding an amulet, it becomes a steal vote instead of an extra vote, which it was ahead of time. So neither one of them are shedding a lot of tears that High got sent out the door, because it actually has helped their game a little bit from the amulet standpoint. Now, I mentioned Romeo feeling like he kind of is laying low a little bit. We see Marianne thinking kind of the similar thing. She's talking about the fact that she doesn't think anyone sees her as a threat, and because of that, she's safe. And I actually think she's right. Marianne's been playing a good game, but she's been able to deflect any real worry about her with her laughing and just being a little silly and all of that. And so she's feeling like she's flying under the radar a little bit along with Romeo. And we actually see the 2 of them talking to each other and saying, look, it's the 2 of us and then the 5 of them. Let's let the 5 of those folks go against each other. And us guys at the bottom, we'll just sneak in at the very end and win this thing. A decent idea, unless the other 5 are on another part of the beach talking about the 2 of you at the same time, which, as it turns out, is exactly what's happening. While Marianne and Romeo are talking, we see the cameras cut over to the other 5 talking. Is it all at the same time? Maybe not. Who knows? But we see the other 5 tribe mates talking together and saying, look, we're pretty solid. Why don't we go after Romeo and Marianne, who haven't really done anything so far? Get the 2 of them out, and then the 5 of us will duke it out when we get done. Great idea. I mean, if that group of 5 guarantees that those 5 make it a little bit further into the game, it's a slam dunk, right? except within that group of five, you've always got one or two people who may feel like they're a little bit more on the bottom than others, or not necessarily have the same advantages, powers, immunity idols that others do. So as much as you can say that you're part of a five and how great that works, people are already thinking ahead. They're thinking to that final five, to the final four, and just not sure it's going to work quite as well as they think it is. But at least in front of everyone, they're saying Romeo and Marianne should be our next targets. And there's some talk, especially from Mike, really suddenly turning critical of Romeo, saying he doesn't do anything around camp, that all he does is eat rice and all that. Whatever. You know, we all have different roles in the tribe, and they're on day number 19. It is what it is. I don't know from Mike's standpoint if he's really as perturbed as he acts about Romeo and Romeo's eating and lack of doing work or whatever. I don't know if it's really that situation, or it's more now that High is gone. Mike is one of those, I think he just needs to have a target to focus on, someone that he can focus his energy on. Yeah, we kind of saw the same with Roxroy, where Roxroy was just so intent on going after Tori. I feel like we kind of see a little bit of that same idea from Mike as well. But we see Mike really kind of going after Romeo as well. So we got that. But, as I mentioned, this final five has decided they're going to work together. Piece of cake, right? Well, no, not really, because then we see Mike, sure enough, talking to Omar and Lindsay and saying, look, I said all that because we've got to make Dre think that she's safe, because if not, she's got all these powers. She doesn't have the immunity idol anymore. Remember, she used that 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So Dre doesn't have that, but she still has other advantages. She's got that amulet. She still has the knowledge as power. So she's got a lot of power she can utilize. And so Mike's saying, look, we got to make sure that she thinks she's completely safe, but we also have to get Drea out. We can't let her stay in this game. She's too many friends. She would win too easy in a jury, and I think she probably would. I think I would not want to go against Drea in a tribal final, because I do think that from a social game, she's played pretty well, and she's got all these advantages also. So they're a little bit worried about that. And Omar and Lindsay are both saying, yeah, no, I agree with you. And of course, as soon as Mike's gone, we later see Omar basically turning on Mike, saying, Mike was so upset that High was trying to control this game and everything. And now Mike's doing the same thing that High was before. Maybe it's time for Mike to go at this time. Omar, can I just say that I think Omar continues to play a great game. It doesn't always work to his advantage. Last week, I think if he had his way, he probably would have kept High in the game, but Mike just had too much influence. Mike made it happen. So it's not always working in Omar's favor, but I think Omar's playing a good game of being friendly to everyone, really not coming across as a threat. And yet he just knows how to get in there and manipulate people and whisper to people at just the right time to steer the ship the right direction. I continue to be impressed with Omar. It seems like he has a good ability to identify a target player, identify a player who he thinks everyone else is going to recognize as potentially a threat. He has the ability to do that, and then just managing to get fingers pointed to that target without necessarily bringing in a lot of blame upon himself. So as we see, it's about the third or fourth week where Omar is maybe thinking a little differently than the rest of the group think, and creating a target. And when he creates a target, he's a scary person to not have as your friend. I'll just say that, because Omar's done pretty well with it. So we have it. Now, we see Jonathan talking a little bit about food and calories and how miserable it is for him. And yeah, I get it. It's not fun being on an island. Listen to me talking. I was on Big Brother. We got as much food as we wanted. A little different on Survivor. I'm sure he is feeling the loss of calorie and the loss of nutrition and such. But Drea eventually comes up with a pretty good term for Jonathan. She refers to him as hangry, and Jonathan very much is seeming to be very hangry. He's a little snappy with some of his decisions, responses. He doesn't like that people are telling him that he can help, and he doesn't feel like he's getting enough acknowledgement for everything he's done around camp and fishing. and he's done a lot, and he's carried a lot of teams. And I get every bit of why maybe he wishes that people would be a little more grateful for some of the things that he has been doing. But at the end of the day, there's only 6 more days left in Survivor, Jonathan. For 6 more days, you just got to bite your tongue and not get hangry and not get snappy. And it's going to do nothing except make that big old target on your back just that much bigger. And as much as I like Jonathan and his competition and the way he's responded and played the game socially and everything else in the first half, we have seen in these last couple of weeks a little bit of a crack in Jonathan's game in terms of just the way he interacts with some of his castmates and the way he maybe tries to control the game a little bit, but also the way he just doesn't. Jonathan likes to be in charge and doesn't really like it as much when other people don't respect that power, let's say. So we see Jonathan maybe really wishing they was already at day 25 is the best way to put it. So we've got that. We do see Lindsay and Drea after that talking about this and talking about the fact that Jonathan is really he's a threat because of his physical powers, but they're recognizing that he's not doing as much around camp. He's kind of slogging around a little bit, that he's hurting for the food. And they're both thinking this may be a good time to go ahead and get Jonathan out the door. And I understand that completely. Lord knows I don't know how Jonathan is with fire making. I'm sure just like everything else competition wise, he would be amazing and fantastic at it. But I sure wouldn't want to be competing against Jonathan when it's just 3, 4, 5 people in a finale fighting to get into that final tribal council. So they're talking about that maybe the time has come for Jonathan to get out the door. And they then proceed to make that plan with Romeo and Marianne. So suddenly we've got 4 people now who are shooting for Jonathan. Isn't it amazing? So far into the episode, we've heard Jonathan's name mentioned. We've heard Drea's name mentioned. We've heard Mike's name mentioned. There's only 7 people left. About half the people are being portrayed as targets this week. Could it be editing and all that? Could there not really be that much focus on each of these players? It could be, but I just think there's a lot of people playing a lot of different strategies depending on who they're talking to at that particular point in time. And we don't know which is going to be the true strategy until we get to the tribal council. I'm not convinced they know what the true strategy is just yet. So with that being said, we go to the immunity challenge. No reward challenge this week. We're straight into the immunity challenge. And we find out why. This week, just like last season, just like Survivor 41, has a little extra twist thrown in, and it's going to be that do or die competition. Remember last season we had it, and the idea is this, just as a little bit of a refresher. Immunity challenge is coming up. You can play an immunity challenge or you can choose to sit out. Why would you ever sit out? Because if you choose to compete, whoever wins, just like every other week, gets immunity. But the first person out of the competition not only doesn't win immunity, but then they have to play a do or die random choice game that gives them the possibility of either leaving the game, no ambulance, no immunity out, nothing can protect you. You're just out the door, or you stay alive and you're safe for that particular week. So, and it's just pure random chance, which pretty scary way to control the fate of your game. So if you decide to play in the game and you're the first one out of the challenge, it's not drawing rocks, but it's a random process that sees whether you stay or not. Remember last season, it was Deshaun who was the first one out, and he got lucky. He ended up, there were 3 boxes. You had to pick the one that had the flame in it. He picked it and he survived. We'll see what happens this particular episode as well. So that's the little extra twist that they've got in place. So who should sit out? Who should feel comfortable enough in this game that they maybe would be willing to sit out, not have the chance of the immunity, but also not have the chance of getting sent home on just a pure random draw type situation? Well, I thought about it. I feel like Omar's safe. I don't think he was a target this week. Lindsay should feel pretty safe. I think Marianne feels pretty safe. Romeo, perhaps. I mean, we saw some conversation about maybe going after him and Marianne, but I feel like Romeo maybe would feel okay. and maybe Drea. Now, Drea, I think, is a bigger target than the other names I mentioned. There was talk about getting her out from Mike, and I certainly think that is valid. The only reason I would maybe consider sitting out if I was Drea is simply because she's got the knowledge is power, plus she's got the extra vote, and now she's got a steal a vote. So she's got some advantages that if she truly felt threatened, she could utilize to stay alive. So it's a little tough, but yeah. So I think there's some people who could afford to sit out, but you're taking a chance when you do it. So as it turns out, everyone has a blind decision. They have to decide without knowing what everyone else is doing. And as it turns out, we only have 2 players who want to compete in this immunity challenge. We have 5 people sitting out. The only 2 who are playing are Jonathan and Lindsay. That's it. That's all that's playing. I get why Jonathan's playing. He's got to think that he's becoming a bigger target every week. He already is considered a competition threat. That playing one more competition isn't going to make a difference on that. If he wins immunity, gives him the protection for another week, I think he's got to go all out every single episode from this point on. So I get why Jonathan's playing the game. Lindsay, not so much. I felt like she was in a good position, but she has decided that she wants to go ahead and take the chance. And I will say this, props to her for not backing down from a challenge. And if she survives this thing, I think it's a huge little piece of resume at a final tribal council where she can say, look, we all knew how strong Jonathan was. I was the only person that was willing to get out there and compete head to head with that guy and try to send him out the door. So, I think it's going to look good as a pitch at the final tribal if she can make it there. But the problem is now that we've only got Jonathan and Lindsay is competing this, one of them's going to win tribal. One is going to win immunity. The other one has a chance of going home right now. That's pretty rough. That's pretty scary. I don't think she would have chosen to compete if she knew that she was the only person besides Jonathan at this point in time. But it is what it is. Now that brings up an interesting thought. What if Lindsay had chosen not to compete in this challenge? What if Jonathan was the only person competing? Well, the winner, and he would have won by default, wins immunity for the week. But that kind of negates the whole do or die random draw. You couldn't give him immunity and force him to do the random draw, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So from a producer standpoint, they got to be feeling pretty damn lucky or pretty damn good that at least someone chose to go alongside Jonathan in this competition. Because otherwise it really was screwed up. It really was screwed up their plans this week, right? We may not have seen, if that had happened, they probably would have edited it out completely. We would have never even known about it or heard about it. But that isn't, you couldn't even do that because then you'd be wondering, why is only one person competing in immunity challenge? So it worked out for the producers, maybe not so much for Jonathan and Lindsay, who suddenly have a lot more pressure on them. All right, so the competition is pretty basic. You stand on a small piece of wood. What is it with small pieces of wood in Survivor this season? Us bigger guys, that's got to be tough. I look at Jonathan and then some of the more petite people playing this game. And he's got the old Bigfoot feet. That'd be tough. But you got to stand on a little plank of wood with basically just your heels touching. You've got to reach behind you and hold on to 2 posts behind your head. And you just hang. It's just a matter of hanging until one person's gone and the other person's left standing. Nothing fancy about it, but truly another endurance test. And a painful test. It just looks painful on your feet. But we see the 2 of them start. They're playing hard, but in the end, is it any surprise? Yeah, this time it really is a bit of a surprise. But Jonathan wins the competition. Jonathan has won immunity for another week. I gotta say, every time he wins immunity, he advances one step closer to that final tribal. But I feel like he just makes that target bigger and bigger and bigger every time. Jonathan's got to figure out some way to get some kind of advantage or twist. It may be too late, but I worry about Jonathan because he can't. Can he? Can he win every single immunity from this point forward? I suppose that's possible. It's not like Big Brother where HOH can't compete in the next week. You can win every single one going forward. Jonathan may need to do that to make it to the end. I truly think. But at least for this week, Jonathan is safe, and Lindsay, who I really thought was safe this week, now is facing the possibility of going home on a pure random draw. That'd be horrible. What a horrible way to go home. So that's what we're looking at. Now, we have a lot of conversations because here's what's going on. If Lindsay goes home, that's it. End of the episode. Tribal Council ends. They've lost one person. They're down to final 6. No strategy needs to be taken into consideration. No votes, nothing. That's the end of it. But if Lindsay's safe, then you're going to have a Tribal Council. Jonathan's going to be safe. Lindsay's going to be safe. That leaves 5 people that could potentially be sent home. So there's a lot of plotting and scheming and planning suddenly taking place based on Lindsay potentially staying alive in this game. And it seems, nothing seems simple in this game, but it seems like a simple decision at one point that everyone is talking at least about aiming for targeting Drea if Lindsay survives, except for Omar. Now, Omar seems like maybe he's on board a little bit, but he's also kind of backing up and saying, I don't know. The editors do a good job of hiding what maybe Omar's thinking, but we know Omar doesn't have problems about occasionally going against the grain and maybe steering people a little bit different direction. But it seems like Drea may be the bigger target right now. But we do find out or see that that Drea is thinking that something may be up. She's noticing, she talks a little bit about people are just kind of looking at her funny, and she's a good observer, and she notices that, and she's telling Omar that because of that, because she thinks that she could be at risk this evening, she's probably going to use her knowledge as power, use it to ask Mike if he has an idol, force Mike to give that idol to her as a way to protect her, and then expose Mike because now he doesn't have any protection, and send Mike out the door at that point in time. And Omar's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Sure, that'd be perfect time to get rid of Mike. Would it be? Is that what Omar wants to do? We aren't really going to know until tribal occurs itself, because we also have some other ideas. Lindsay also has the idea to tell Mike about the advantage that Drea has. Tell Mike that Drea is going to use this power on Mike, so as to force Mike to give up this idol, give it to Omar to hold on to, and then they could turn around and vote out Mike. Omar gets to hold on to that idol because Mike's gone, or they could turn around and vote out Drea at that point. So there's a lot of crazy different strategies going on. I say crazy in the best possible sense. These are they're all smart strategies. It just depends on who you want to go to the end of the game with. Do they feel more comfortable going with Mike? Do they feel more comfortable going with Drea? I don't know. I gotta say, if I'm on that island, I think, even though I think Mike's playing that game a little personal at times, there's a part of me that would probably be pretty attached to Mike, because I think if you can convince him of your loyalty, he would probably pay that back for as long as possible. Now, as long as possible doesn't mean to the very end, so you got to be careful about that. But I do feel like Mike would watch your back if you watched his for at least a little bit further on down the game. But it's a target-rich environment at this point in time, right? There are a lot of people being talked about. So, Tribal Council itself. It's going to be another good tribal. We've got Drea talking about the fact, she hinted at this earlier when she was talking to Omar. Drea's talking about the fact that she's been observing everyone, that she knows when people go off to gather wood, they come back, they don't have any wood in their hands. When they say they're going to go get water and they come back and their canteens are still empty, she calls out specifically Jonathan, says, when I see Jonathan whispering to everyone throughout the entire day, it just makes you wonder if things are up. I think this is smart of Drea. Not only is she just pointing out that she's observing everything, but if they are potentially targeting Drea, which she doesn't know for certain, but if they are potentially targeting Drea, by her letting them know that she is aware of that, she may be getting people to think twice about going after her, knowing that she has all these twists and advantages that she may play if she truly feels like she's nervous and maybe a threat of going home. So I thought it was smart of Drea to mention that she was watching this and just kind of Hint, hint, guys. I know that maybe something's going on, so don't think that I'm oblivious to all the conversations that are taking place. So Drea mentions that, and we'll see how that works out. Now, before we get to the tribal council vote itself, we've got to go with Lindsay's do or die game. And it turns out it's just like last season. 3 boxes, 1 has safety, 2 do not have safety. So what's that mean? It means a 1 in 3 chance that she can stay in the game. Well, yes, logically, or it looks like it should be a 1 in 3 chance. The reality is it's a 2 in 3 chance that she survives. And I know it doesn't seem to make sense. There's only 1 box that has safety. The other 2 don't. But it's still a 2 in 3 chance that she could survive. You want to know how? Look up on Google the Monty Hall dilemma, the Monty Hall logic problem. Basically, the idea, she's going to pick one of those 3 boxes. She has a 1 in 3 chance of surviving. Jeff Probst is then going to open up one of the 2 boxes that has death in it. He'll then give her the option to either keep her box. Remember, she had a 1 in 3 chance that was the correct box, or she can switch boxes with which one he had, which represents the other 2 in 3 chances. It's not 50-50. I know that seems like that, but if she makes a swap, it's a 2 in 3 chance that she could survive. Monty Hall, look it up, and that's how it works. So it doesn't matter. There's still a chance she's going to go home, and she's got no control over that whatsoever. But we see her make her selection. We see Jeff open up one of the boxes that he knows is not the safety box. So now she can either swap and take the other box, which is what she should do, or she can keep the box that she originally picked, which represented a 1 in 3 chance of being correct. Well, again, I'm telling you mathematically what she should do. She doesn't do it. She keeps the box that she originally selected. And it was the right decision. Sometimes when you play the odds, that doesn't mean you're always right. She went against the odds. She kept the box that she started with, and it's the box that had the safety in it. So Lindsay stays alive in the game. This is the second time this happened. Last season, Deshaun did exactly the same thing. He kept the box he originally selected. He chose not to pick the other one when he had the chance, which he should have, but he did. And he picked correctly. It's amazing. How does that work out so well twice in a row? Well, sometimes the odds just, things just happen. Lucky players. But it doesn't matter because Lindsay is safe, which I like Lindsay, so I'm happy to see her safe. But more importantly than that, it means that we get to see all these players scrambling and playing all these, trying to figure out all these different plans that have been discussed throughout this episode. What is the plan that we're going to now see go into play? If Lindsay had gone home, it would have all been anticlimactic. It wouldn't have mattered what the strategies were at this point in time because there wasn't going to be a vote. But Lindsay's safe, so we're going to get the vote, and it's going to make it very, very exciting. So on to the vote itself. But before the vote, we get Drea, who has decided to use her knowledge of his power, which she told Omar she's going to do. She turns around and she reads it out and she says, Mike, do you have an idol? And Mike's response, no, we all know that Mike found that idol earlier, right? Mike's response is, no, I don't have an idol. Did he hand it to Omar as Lindsay and Omar had talked about previously? Why, yes, he did. Now, we didn't know about that. Just like last season, the editors kept us in the dark. They didn't give any kind of hint that is actually what had happened. So we were blindsided. Maybe that's not right word. We didn't know whether he had the idol or not. Well, it turns out Omar did approach Mike before the event, said, hey, just to let you know, she's getting ready to get you at this thing. If you give me the idol, you'll negate her power. I'll give it back to you when we get done, and all will be good. All will be fine. Smart move. Smart for a lot of reasons. First of all, Omar now is holding on to the idol. Maybe he'll give it back. Maybe he won't. But if Mike survives as a result of this, Mike is going to feel like he owes Omar so much. I think that's going to go a long way to building up a lot of trust and loyalty with Mike. And that's a player who I think that's very important to have. But the quicker question or the short-term question, Drea's power has now been negated. She doesn't get that idol. Mike holds on to his idol. Maybe someone holds on to Mike's idol. So now who's going home? There's still 5 people that potentially can get voted home. It seems like at this point in time, it's probably going to be either Mike or Drea are the 2 people that are most at odds. So we see the vote, and by not a 4-3 vote, by a 5-3 vote, because Drea went ahead and used her extra vote, which she should have. Use everything you can. She should. I feel like maybe she had an amulet that was a steal a vote as well. I've never been real clear whether that steal a vote, if she has a steal a vote and Lindsay has a steal a vote, or they have to agree together to use their amulets in order to create one steal a vote. I'm not sure if Drea had the power to use that or not. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered anyway, because by a vote of 5-3, Drea is heading out the door. Drea, who had every kind of advantage, played an amazing social game. I think she had a lot of friends on the juror. She would have been a tough person to beat in a final tribal. I hope Drea, and she seemed very, you can't be happy if you're heading out there, but she seemed okay with the result. And, as okay as you can be. I think she went out holding her head up high and trying to keep a smile on her face. And she should. As Jeff Probst said at the end, this is a game. At the end of all this, it's just a game. And he talked about how entertaining it was, watching everyone play hard, and yet at the same time, they still treat everyone with friendship. Drea wasn't mad at anyone who sent her out the door. No one who sent her out the door did so with any animosity. That's what I like to see. Big Brother, Survivor, whatever. I like to see people who recognize that this is just a game, that you don't have to hold grudges forever, that it is a game. You can still be friendly with people even while you're stabbing them in the back. That's just the way it goes. So Drea is out. Amazing gameplay this week. A lot of strategies come into play. And as it turns out, Omar, yet again, controlled a lot of the end result of this particular episode in this game. So a couple of things. One, on the way out the door, I say everyone, no one's playing with a grudge and everything else. Drea made a couple of mentions that she had little pokes at the end. She told Mike, she said, hey, I think you're going to win this whole thing. If you get to the very end, I think you're winning, which on a personal standpoint, you ought to say, hey, thank you, I appreciate it. Saying that in front of everyone else may not be such a great idea. I certainly would not want everyone thinking that I'm winning if I'm going to the end. So she kind of threw Mike under the bus a little bit by mentioning that. She especially threw Omar under the bus by saying, look, Omar was the only one that knew about that knowledge is power advantage. So I know who betrayed me. Y'all just, she didn't say it, but basically the implication was just keep that in mind when you think that you can trust Omar and all that. So yeah, she kind of threw Omar under the bus. Don't think it matters. I think Omar's going to be able to solve that by saying, yeah, she told me about it. I was kind of tight, she thought I was tight with her, but Mike, you and me, I'm not going to let her do that to you. I think Omar's going to be just fine. For now, at least. I think Omar played a pretty good game. So we do have a bit of a decision next week. Omar's holding on to Mike's idol. Is he going to give it back to Mike? If he doesn't, then he destroys all the loyalty and relationship and everything that he's built up with Mike, because Mike's going to be cheeved. That's a word, right? Mike's going to be a little upset that if he doesn't get that idol back from Omar. But on the other hand, an idol is an immunity idol is an immunity idol. Those things are worth their weight in gold, right? So if I'm Omar, maybe I give it back, but there's certainly a whole lot of me thinking, that protects me for a week when I absolutely need it. I think maybe I would consider giving it back to Mike, but not until I extract a little bit of something from him. Maybe a promise that I am on board to the very end with them, or some promises, swear on your word, handshakes. We know how effective handshakes are in reality games, right? Yeah, I figured it out. But I would not give the idol back to Mike easily. I would at least see if I could work it to my advantage. And maybe Omar's not going to give it back at all. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting quandary that Omar has next week as he interacts with Mike. Because I'm sure I'm sure heading back to camp, 5 minutes away from tribal council, Mike's going to be asking for that idol from Omar. It's not going to take long. So Omar better have a pretty good idea about what he wants to do, because Mike's going to be very antsy to get back. I don't know. We're going to find out next week. Until then, another fun episode. I hated to see Dre go, especially with all the advantages and everything she had, but she was a joy to watch, and she played a great game. We may see her back one of these days. So it was a fun episode. Guys, I will be back next Wednesday for another recap of episode 11. We're getting down to the end. It won't be that many more episodes, and we'll be down to the final tribal council. Guys, you'll have a great one. Cheers, my friends. SKD 143. Bye.